Welcome to Classic Patronum, the channel dedicated to the times of old. I always get a sinking feeling when I bring the subject of old black and white movies to a group of uninterested friends. It pains me to be in a generation which scoffs at the very movies without which modern film would not exist. Even in online fandom communities, the conversation is almost always limited to the films made between the 1960s to the present decade. But what about the ones that came earlier before that? I mean, way earlier, to something like the 1930s, for example. When you ask most people why they wouldn't sit down to watch a black and white movie, the argument is mostly that black and white movies are bland, boring, and just not that culturally relevant anymore. This opinion, however, is a very narrow lens through which to view the movies of old. We live in a culture that praises the adventure of Steven Spielberg films, worships at Christopher Nolan's altar of mind-bending high-concept narratives, or stands in awe of James Cameron's technical marvels. Yet, as the film community, we have forgotten that these visionary directors whose works we adore were themselves influenced by much older films. In an article published by the British Film Institution titled 10 Films That Inspired Spielberg, Steven Spielberg's Close Encounters of the Third Kind draws heavily from The Day the Earth Stood Still, a black and white science fiction film released in 1951. Both films excel at conveying a sense of widespread paranoia escalating towards full-blown hysteria. And both ensure that their fantastical scenarios are as plausible as possible by exploring the impact of extraterrestrial visitation on the mundane lives of their everyman protagonists. The touching relationship Klaatu develops with young boy Bobby might also be regarded as a foreshadowing of the bond formed between Elliot and the titular alien in E.T. 1957's 12 Angry Men is also often cited by Christopher Nolan to be one of the films that have influenced his own the most. It too is a black and white film. From the 1933 version of King Kong that later inspired Peter Jackson to remake the movie 7 decades later, to the noir films of the 1940s, the musicals, the monster films such as Frankenstein and Dracula, and the whimsical silent films of Charlie Chaplin, there is a glorious abundance of genres to choose from. Sure, the acting might be a bit out of style, the special effects a bit dated, but imagine how the audience who had seen nothing of the sort might have felt like in the cinema back then. If you have never attempted to watch an old black and white movie before, and you don't know where to start, I'd suggest Citizen Kane, often considered the greatest film ever made, as a good place to start. I mean, you can start with the truly great ones like Charlie Chaplin's The Gold Rush, or Casablanca, or better still, Billy Wilder's 1944 noir film Double Indemnity. After you get over the nagging cynical thought that you are actually watching a black and white movie, just be prepared and let yourself be completely transported and transfixed by the relatable narrative. I say relatable because, well, such films were made by real human beings who had a passion for storytelling and the ability to entertain any audience. Yes, even an audience living far in the future of our 21st century. So that's it for this week's video. Be sure to like and subscribe for more upcoming videos in the not too distant future. I will link some of my favorite black and white movies in the description so you can watch them here on YouTube. Once again, thanks for watching!